In the ancient world, some people whitened their teeth by rinsing their mouths every single morning with urine. Yes, you heard that right, but let me tell you something. That is not the most disgusting thing in this video. It doesn't even come close, because over the next few minutes, you'll see that what we call disgusting is far more made up, far more flexible than you think. There is something you find perfectly normal today, maybe even something you love, that would have turned an ancient person's stomach 2,000 years ago. I saved that one for last. Stay till the end, because that final thing is probably on you, in your hand, or in your mouth right now. Let's start with that urine because the funny part is hiding right there. The Roman poet Catullus mercilessly mocked a man named Ignatius in his poems. His crime? Smiling all the time? Because Ignatius had snow-white teeth. And Catullus had a simple explanation. If your teeth are that bright, you must have swallowed a lot of urine. This habit was actually pinned on the Celtiberians, a people in Spain, and the Romans saw it as pure barbarism, pure disgust. But here's the twist. Did the Romans actually find urine disgusting? Not at all. On Roman streets, there were pots set out just to collect it. People would relieve themselves into them, and when they filled up, the contents went off to the laundry, where workers stomped on togas inside the urine to clean them. The Emperor Vespasian even put a tax on it. So the same liquid. In your mouth, it's disgusting barbarism. Poured on your toga, it's perfectly normal laundry detergent. So why is one disgusting and the other completely normal? This is the whole secret of the video. Disgusting usually doesn't describe a fact. It just describes the thing we don't do. Keep that in mind because everything after this is built on it. Now I'll ask you a simple question, but the answer is hard to guess. What could you put on a Roman's table that would instantly make him call you a filthy barbarian? Rotten meat? Maggoty cheese? Blood? None of them. The answer is butter. To a Roman, the word oil meant olive oil. Butter was something eaten by the Gauls and the Celts up in the cold north. Barbarians in their eyes. Pliny the Elder literally called butter the choicest food of barbarian tribes. The Greeks went even further and used butter eater as an insult. And it gets better. Romans didn't even think of butter as food. To them, it was a kind of ointment, something you smeared on a burn. There's even a story. Julius Caesar is at a dinner, and they serve him asparagus, not with olive oil, but with melted butter. The Romans next to him are horrified and refuse to touch it. Caesar eats it, of course, because he's Caesar. Think about it. That innocent thing you spread on your toast in the morning was, to an entire empire, the mark of a savage. Let's keep going because it isn't just food. Now, clothing. Picture one piece of clothing. Today, it's the most normal, ordinary thing in the world. You're probably wearing it right now. But in ancient Greece, putting it on would instantly mark you as a wild, uncivilized foreigner. What is it? Trousers. In ancient Greece and Rome, a civilized man wore a tunic or a toga, basically a long shirt, almost a skirt. Those tube-like things you pull onto each leg separately. Trousers belonged to the Persians, the Scythians, the Gauls. To a Greek, trousers looked both ridiculous and crude. So the most comfortable, most practical clothing of today was, in their eyes, the literal uniform of barbarism. Drop an Athenian into a modern street, and he'd look around and think, this place is crawling with barbarians, because everyone is wearing trousers. Up to now, we've talked about things other people found disgusting, but next comes a dish so vile that a man who tasted it said, I would rather die than eat this again. And not as a joke, he meant it. In ancient Greece, Sparta was famous for two things, the fearlessness of its warriors and its absolutely terrible food. The Spartan national dish, melasomos or black broth, was a pitch-black stew made from pork, pig's blood, vinegar, and salt. Other Greeks found this soup genuinely revolting. Once, a man from Sybaris, a city famous for luxury, tasted it and delivered this legendary line. Now I understand why the Spartans don't fear death, because they would rather die than eat this broth again. In another story, a king tastes it and spits it out. The Spartan cook's reply is perfect. Your Majesty, to enjoy this broth, you first have to train like a Spartan and then bathe in the river Eurotas. And here's the strange part. The Spartans turned the disgustingness of this soup into a point of pride. Fancy food was weakness. Everyone eating the same bad meal at the same table was equality. So here, the disgust wasn't an accident. It was the entire point. Now let me stop the video for a second and paint you a scene. You're in a wealthy Roman's home. The table is overflowing with asparagus, sea urchin, honey-soaked desserts. The man eats until he's stuffed, until not one more bite will fit. But he doesn't give up. He stands, walks to a small chamber next door. There's a basin in there and a feather. He tickles his throat with the feather, empties his stomach, and walks back to the table to start eating all over again. And this special vomiting room even had a name: the vomitorium. Sounds like the perfect piece of ancient disgust, doesn't it? Exactly what we expect from Rome, a spoiled, jaded empire that gorges and purges. There's just one problem: none of it ever happened. The real vomitorium was not a vomiting room. In huge arenas like the Colosseum, it was the name for the passageways that let crowds pour in and empty out quickly. It comes from the Latin for to spew forth, because these corridors practically spewed thousands of people out toward their seats. What got spewed out wasn't a person, it was the crowd. That vomiting room between courses scene appears in no ancient source at all. It's a fabrication that spread much later, in the early 1900s, from a word misused in a novel. And in fact, cultured Romans looked down on overeating and drunkenness. Writers like Seneca openly mocked it. And this is the heart of the whole video. You believed that scene for a second, didn't you? Which means sometimes the disgusting ancient fact we get told isn't in history at all. It's in our imagination. Sometimes the disgust isn't the work of the past. It's the work of whoever's telling the story. Now, back to Rome, because there was a sauce the Romans poured on almost everything: garum. How was garum made? They'd take fish guts, heads, and innards, mix them with a mountain of salt, and leave them to rot in the sun for weeks, sometimes months. The liquid that collected on top was garum. They put it on meat. They put it on fish. Yes, fish sauce on fish. They even mixed it with honey and put it on dessert. So guess, did the Romans find this sauce disgusting? The answer is not the taste, but the smell. The stench during production was so unbearable that garum factories had to be built outside the city walls. People were even restricted from making it in their own homes. And the philosopher Seneca described garum as a kind of poisonous fish, rotting and burning away inside your stomach. So the same people both adored and were disgusted by the same sauce. Deliciousness and disgust, sitting in the very same jar. They ran from the smell of the thing they loved. One place left: ancient Egypt. Here's the question. In ancient Egypt, what did you have to not have on your body to be considered clean and respectable? The answer? Hair. Egyptian priests and elites shaved off nearly every hair on their bodies: head, eyebrows, the entire body. To them, being hairy was dirty, unhygienic. In short, disgusting. So the thing you proudly call natural today was, in their eyes, not yet cleaned. If an Egyptian priest looked at people today, he would find every single one of us unwashed. Let's count back for a second. Teeth shining with urine, barbarian butter, savage trousers, the I'd rather die broth, garum, loved and fled from at the same time, being called filthy, just for having body hair. What do they all have in common? Not one of them was actually objectively disgusting. They were just things someone wasn't used to. There is no fixed truth called disgusting. There's only who's looking, and from which century. And now, that last thing I promised you at the very beginning. That thing you find perfectly normal today, the thing that will probably disgust the people 2,000 years from now, is actually a whole list of things. The way we raise animals in cages and eat them, the way we shove a brush into our mouths every morning, foam it up, and spit. Maybe that coffee you're sipping right now while holding your phone will look just as strange as someone brushing their teeth with urine. Because there is no such thing as disgusting. There are only things we haven't gotten used to yet. So, here's my question for you. What habit of ours do you think future people will be most disgusted by? Write it in the comments. I'll pin the most creative answer.